folks, and welcome to another episode on Natalie's Sofa. And today just two things, and I'm going to go straight into the main thing in a moment, which we've had a firmware update for the X-T5, X-S20, and I think the X-H2. The X-H2S got a firmware update about a month ago, and it's mainly, I'll bring what they've changed up on the screen here so you can have a read, and I'll put a link to the X-T5's firmware update page so you can see the changes. But I want to focus on no pun intended. I want to focus on the autofocus portion of the update, and it especially pertains to video autofocus. And towards the end of the video as well, came across, I like to come across the forum posts, and there was people talking about why you should use a lens hood. So I've got a couple of kind of very quick samples. I'll go into the details of that, of why there's advantages to using a lens hood. But let's get back on to the main thing. So the autofocus update for Fuji cameras, we already had subject detection, which worked pretty well. In fact, you've probably seen my video on the X-S20 and its 10x 240p slow-mo, and how effective that is at maintaining focus, and it was pretty good. Where Fuji cameras struggled was if it was a busy background, it would sometimes not see the subject. It would lash or something else. This applied to video and to stills. And I did go out and have a quick test of the stills autofocus, and it is a little bit better. It certainly had problems. If the contrast was low, it couldn't quite lock focus, and I've got a picture of a great crested grebe here that was in the distance, and it couldn't really get the focus locked on the eye, so it wasn't perfect. It is improved, and again, a nice sort of soft light soft light photo of some ducks and some baby ducklings taken here, and here we got razor sharp focus. The camera really excelled there when there was darker colours in the feathers and the down of the duck, so there was more contrast. So I would imagine a lot of cameras do struggle in these contrasty situations. So certainly in photography you're an improvement, but the biggest change has been in video. So a long complaint going on probably since the X-T4, when the Fuji autofocus started to become quite good, maybe some X-T3 days, has been that Fuji cameras in autofocus basically have two modes, or had two modes. One where you could put a box over what you wanted to focus on, and another where you just had what's called wide autofocus mode, where the camera uses some rudimentary AI to determine what the subject is. Obviously the X-T3 and 4 didn't have any form of subject detection, so it didn't work very well. X-T5 did have subject detection to an extent. You could lock on to a subject and track it. And of course, Fuji cameras from, I believe, the X-T4 have also had tracking autofocus in stills. I'm not sure the X-T3 had it. I'd never owned an X-T3, so I couldn't say. So photographers were always happy that they had at least a tracking autofocus that was somewhat reliable. But videographers, or cinematographers, whatever you want to call us, we never were able to track things. Well, now the latest update gives us that tracking. And I've been playing with it this afternoon and waited for some birds to land on the branches of a tree opposite my house. And although it sometimes can still get confused a little bit, quite impressed. First of all, it's able to pick out a bird with just the standard AI autofocus, as you can see here, with a lot of foliage around it, and indeed sometimes with a lot of foliage in front of the bird, it can stay locked on, and it often finds the eye of the bird. This is one area where Fuji wasn't very good. It would always lose autofocus. here, and it was a big complaint. In fact, Fuji would often, you'd point the camera at a bird and it would go, oh, there's a bird. No, that's a leaf. And it would focus on something completely arbitrary, and you'd be messing around and you'd lose the shot. Now, sometimes you still get that with long lenses, and I faffed around with that today. And I did get times where it just zoomed out and I didn't get the shot, but it was much rarer than it has been. What was the interesting thing was the way the tracking now works. So you've got touch autofocus, where you can place a box with the joystick over the subject. Now, if the camera doesn't see an eye, and it sometimes won't, it might get the body of the bird. It's pretty good at doing that, and it'll put a box over it. If you tap the box, or you tap the AF on button at the corner of the screen, it'll lock onto that and it'll track it. In fact, when I couldn't get some birds to behave, because they don't always come over when you want them, I tried it on, it was being a windy day, so I just locked it onto a branch. And you can see how it pretty much tracks the branch all right. And it maintains the focus pretty good. I've been quite impressed by the tracking ability. But it does have another little trump card up its sleeve, which I didn't know. If you've got this on, and I haven't tried this on the zone autofocus modes, but I would imagine it'll be similar, just that you can control it more with the zone. But if you if you put the camera on wide tracking mode, because you can't really have a zone as such like you can on a still, so I haven't tried it in the other mode of photography where effectively you can put a zone or a box over the subject. That is yet to be tested. I didn't have much, I only had half an hour to quickly get some footage, so it was kind of a rush job. But this is the mode I would more likely use, is the wide tracking mode, so I can move the box anywhere I want or have the camera's AI do the job. And I'm finding it's quite reliable. It finds the bird. Now, if you let it find the bird and it sees the bird's eye, it'll actually put a little box over the bird's eye. If you press the joystick in, not only does it lock the tracking onto the bird, it locks the tracking onto the bird's eye. And it will follow the eye as long as it can remain locked on. If it loses the eye, it'll go back to a box. And you couldn't do this in video before. So this is a monumentally huge update. And remember, this is the first, as it were, generation of this update. Now remember, the X-T5, X-S20, etc., the 5th generation cameras have always had subject detection, which gave them rudimentary tracking in video, because if they saw a subject, they would lock onto it. It's just you had no control over locking that button on or off. Now you do. And it worked really well, actually. I think the only reason I found it difficult was because I'm having to hold my Pocket 3 behind the camera, because I'm jammed up against the wall to get the shot. And I'm having to hold my Pocket 3 up and film the back of the camera. I know I can use a capture card, but you know, when you're limited for time, it's a lot easier just to hold a camera behind a little pocket camera behind your camera to film the screen, versus plugging in a capture card, trying to capture, and it's a lot more involved, and I didn't have time. I had to squeeze everything into lunch break and then straight after work. So the joys of running a YouTube channel and a full-time job is your lunch break ends up being you doing your YouTube work. So I had to fit it in around that. But I'm impressed with what I was able to achieve, and I think I've got some very nice focus shots. Even when the bird flew off, the camera was able to an extent, maintain focus. So I'd be, quite confident to take this camera with me to do some bird cinematography. Equally, as we went over the, I'm spoilt the last few weeks, because the S5 2X had its firmware update, which turned the autofocus, video autofocus, from something that was mediocre, that had pulsing problems, to something that was absolutely stunning. And again, if you watch my last episode of Natalie's Sofa, you'll see we went over the S5 and how its autofocus had improved. So I haven't had any problems with the firmware update. The camera's worked fine, no crashes or anything like that. As I say, there were a couple of other things they did on there, and I've got them on the screen. I think they've added a firmware update. So I think you can do the firmware update through the menu rather than pressing the button to power the camera on for subsequent updates. Frame.io, which is Adobe's online sharing platform, is now supported. And again, they've changed the temperature power off. I'll not go into these. Like I say, I've linked it down below so you can see and read the description yourself. I was more interested, more focused, more interested in the video autofocus change. I think this is the biggest change, and it's a significant change. And, you know, it brings back what Fuji would call Kaizen, I think it is, which is what they promised through their firmware updates, substantial changes. And, you know, Lumex last week and Fuji this week had delivered, and we still haven't had Reality Ace yet, and that's coming, I think, in the summer. So the X-T5 will get Reality Ace, X-S20 will as well. Moving on, I've got an extra thing to say as well. But moving on, I'll keep it related to Fuji very quickly. Fuji Summit is this month on, I think, the 16th of May. Well, not this month. This month's tomorrow. When this comes out, it'll be this month, because it's a day before. I'm filming it the night before. But this month, May 16th, the Fuji X show will come out, and I believe they're going to announce the X-T50, which is a kind of mini version of the X-T5. Wonder how popular that'll be. It kind of looks like this. Anyway, the last thing I wanted to go over was lens hoods. You can probably see on the one that was taken with the lens hood on that it's a little bit more contrasty, and the one taken without the lens hood on is less contrasty. And essentially all a lens hood does is, if you imagine the sun being off to your left or your right or even dead ahead of you, if you imagine rays of light coming in, the lens hood blocks some of those coming in from the side at 90 degrees, and it's those lines of light, if you like, that come in at a perpendicular, is that the right word? Come in at 90 degrees to the lens, that will cause this reduction in contrast. So essentially you wear a lens hood. Well, you don't wear one. You could wear one. you could wear a lens hood. You could on your head, but I wouldn't recommend it. When you put a lens hood on, your camera wears a lens hood. That's essentially what they're for. They just stop stray light coming in. So if I'm a camera, I'm wearing a lens hood on my nose. If the light's coming in this way, it hits the lens hood. Only light coming in this way will hit my nose. So my nose was the lens. That was a very graphical demonstration of a lens hood. The only other really useful thing for them is that they're good at protecting your lens. If you bump your camera, especially on a long lens, long telephoto lens, they're very good at protecting the camera from bumps, scratches and things like that, as if you're in a bird hide, it bashes around. And also if it's raining, they offer quite good weather protection to keep the rain off the lens element. So you should really use a lens hood all the time, unless you actually want to have that flare, because sometimes having a lens flare and all the mess and wonderful diffraction of light like this picture it creates, you don't always want to have your lens hood on, because sometimes having these random shafts of light all over the place just adds to the picture. So that's it, folks. So I hope this helped you get a bit out of what the X-T5 firmware update is going to be about. I'm very impressed, very pleased with it. So if you haven't downloaded your camera already, give it a download. follow the instructions on the site so you do the download properly, and go out and have a go, and let me know in the comments what you think, what you achieve, and what your thoughts are on that, and what your thoughts are. Do you use a lens hood? Discuss below. Let me know if you use a lens hood, or whether you don't, or whether you think they are useless and should just be used as a hat. Discuss in the comments below. And remember, I'll also put in the description my email address. So if you want to share a story, or something photography or even motovlogging related, then you can drop me a line, or you can send a message in the comments below. And one final thought is, I'll mention it more next week, but I did do that second motovlogging test with the wireless Go mic. Was better, but there are still problems. So the last test is to do it with the volume control. The joys of trying to get audio in a very tricky situation. I will see you all later, folks. If you got value from the video and you enjoyed it, please do drop a like and subscribe so you get notifications, or from that notifications bell, of when I do the next video. See you all later. Bye.